Black CEO fired in meeting seconds later, she regained control of the company. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. The boardroom was too bright for what was about to happen. Glass walls, skyline view, polished wood that smelled like money and arrogance. Get out. You're fired. Thomas Crane didn't just say it, he hurled it, like a verdict. His voice cracked through the room, bouncing off the marble and the silence that followed. Papers scattered across the floor, a framed photo slid from the table, the sound of glass against glass. Ava Carter didn't flinch. She was on one knee, quietly picking up what was left of her desk, her degree from Howard, a broken nameplate, a photo of her mother in a Sunday dress. Around the table, a dozen suits watched and said nothing. Some looked away, some smirked. Thomas leaned forward, pointing down at her like she was a stain he wanted erased. You should have known your place, Carter. You're done here. The air tightened. The city outside looked calm, almost mocking. Ava straightened the edge of a photo, set it gently in the box, and finally looked up. Funny, she said softly, each syllable steady as stone. I own this. The words hung in the air, weightless and devastating, the kind that make everyone stop breathing for a heartbeat. Across the table, Linda, head of operations, polished and complicit, chuckled under her breath. Own what, sweetheart? The coffee machine? No one laughed. Even the projector light seemed to freeze mid-beam. Ava stood. She wasn't tall, but somehow the room shrank. You just made the loudest mistake of your career, she said. No anger, no tremor, just fact. Thomas snorted. Security, he barked, turning to the doorway. Get her out, before she makes this a scene. But the scene was already made. The picture-perfect meeting had cracked open, and everyone could feel it. Malik, the youngest analyst, shifted in his chair, eyes darting between the CEO they'd dismissed and the man who'd just buried his own career. The door didn't open. No security came. Only the hum of the city below and the soft buzz of Ava's phone vibrating on the table. She picked it up, pressed a single button, and whispered, Carla, we're live. From the speaker, a calm female voice replied, Protocol 9 activated. Thomas frowned. What the hell are you doing? Ava looked at him. Not up, not down, just level. Finishing what I built. She turned toward the window, the skyline blazing behind her like an omen. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here. Now, back to Ava Carter. The lights above flickered once, subtle, like a warning. Computers along the wall logged out all at once. On Thomas's laptop, an email appeared, time-stamped and irreversible. Ownership transfer confirmed. Effective immediately. Ava L. Carter. We did it. He blinked. The color drained from his face. Ava didn't move, didn't smile. She just said, quietly, Next time you raise your voice, make sure it's still your room. 5 hours earlier. The same boardroom looked harmless then. Glass, sunlight, small talk about quarterly gains and golf weekends. The city stretched behind them like a trophy case. At the far end of the table, a chair sat empty. The one meant for Ava Carter. She arrived without announcement. No chauffeur, no assistant trailing behind. Just a slim leather folder in one hand and quiet confidence in the other. Her navy suit was simple, her hair tied back, her jewelry understated. It was a deliberate choice, a test, not a disguise. Thomas glanced up when she entered. His expression carried that polite impatience men reserve for women they underestimate. Miss Carter, you can sit anywhere, he said, without looking long enough to realize that she was the reason this meeting existed. Ava smiled slightly. I'll stand for now. He shrugged and went back to his notes. To him, she was still the new hire, the diversity face for the quarterly report. Someone to decorate, not to decide. Linda, head of operations, leaned toward another executive and whispered, "Guess the board's checking boxes again." The whisper wasn't quiet. It wasn't meant to be. Ava heard it. She'd heard that same tone before, 10 years earlier, when she'd been a senior analyst no one wanted to listen to, until her projections saved the company from a $40 million collapse. The memory slid through her like smoke, sharp and familiar. She set her folder on the table. "I've reviewed the financials," she said evenly. "There's a $2.3 million discrepancy in the Q3 statement. I'd like to discuss that first." Thomas looked up, amused. "You're bold, but accounting's not your lane." "Neither is ethics," Ava replied, "but someone has to drive it." A ripple of silence followed. Even the air conditioner seemed to pause. Linda clicked her pen, sharp, defensive. "You're suggesting misconduct?" "I'm suggesting oversight," Ava said, her gaze sweeping the room. "And we're going to correct it." For a second, no one spoke. The city below kept moving. Then Thomas laughed. "You're really something. I admire your enthusiasm, but we don't take orders from consultants." "I'm not consulting," Ava said softly. "I'm auditing." He frowned. "On whose authority?" She didn't answer. Not yet. Instead, she opened her folder and slid a report across the table. The logo on the header made Linda's breath catch. Carter Holdings. Ava continued, calm and surgical. "This document outlines every unauthorized transfer made from our reserve accounts in the last 6 months, all routed through a shell entity under your management, Thomas." He went pale. "That's absurd. You can't." "I can," Ava said. And I did. The room shifted. The interns at the corner stopped typing. The tension was alive now, crawling across the table like static. Thomas tried to laugh it off. "Let's not make this dramatic. I'll have my team double-check." Ava tilted her head. "Please do. I'll wait." It wasn't defiance. It was control. Quiet, absolute control that unnerved every ego in the room. Minutes passed in heavy silence. Thomas shuffled through his tablet, pretending to look busy, avoiding her eyes. The clock ticked louder than it should have. Finally, Linda spoke, voice cautious. "Perhaps we should move to other topics." Ava interrupted gently. "No, let's finish this one." There it was again, that calm authority wrapped in politeness, more powerful than shouting. Outside, clouds began to gather over the skyline. Inside, the storm was still quiet, but it was forming. Ava leaned forward, her tone almost kind. "I'm here to help this company find its footing. But before that happens," she looked straight at Thomas, "we need to see who's been shaking the ground." Base. Somewhere, deep in the system, a series of silent notifications began to queue. A storm was coming, and Ava had just pressed send. The next 40 minutes unfolded like a play with too many masks and not enough truth. The agenda on the screen said financial realignment strategy, but everyone in that room knew what it really meant: damage control. Thomas controlled the slides. He stood tall, silver hair and confidence polished by decades of unchecked authority. Every click of his remote was a weapon. "Now, as I was saying," he began, "the Q3 variance is easily explained. Vendor delays, supply chain inconsistencies, standard stuff." His tone was smooth, almost rehearsed, the kind that makes lies sound like leadership. Ava sat near the end of the table, silent, hands folded, eyes fixed on the graphs flashing behind him. Every line of data confirmed what she already knew. Money had been moved, hidden under vague expense codes and clever language. Linda chimed in, all false brightness. "Thomas has handled our budgets for 15 years, Miss Carter. I think we can trust his judgment." Ava turned slightly, meeting her eyes. "That's exactly what I'm testing." The room chilled. One of the interns coughed, then stopped halfway, realizing it sounded too loud. Thomas laughed. Not a real laugh, but a weaponized one. "You're implying theft. That's serious. You should be careful with your words." Ava didn't blink. "So should you." The silence that followed had weight. It pressed down on everyone in the room except her. Linda broke it first, her voice tighter now. "Look, we all want transparency, but this tone," Ava cut in gently, "is called accountability." It wasn't the volume of her voice that shook them. It was the calm, the unshakable, measured calm of someone who's already done the math. Thomas's face flushed. "You're out of line." "Maybe," Ava said, "but the line's been crooked for a long time." Measure great now. Every eye in the room shifted first to Thomas, then to her. The hierarchy they'd clung to for years was suddenly uncertain. Outside, the sky dimmed. A thin shadow crossed the glass wall like an omen. Then Thomas did something desperate. He slammed his palm on the table. "Enough. You might have the board fooled, but not me. You walk in here with your fancy reports and your quiet little attitude, acting like you run the place." Ava looked at him. Not angry, not afraid, simply present. "If you're so sure," she said, "then you won't mind if we open the accounts together." Linda muttered, "This is absurd." Ava leaned back in her chair, voice steady. "Absurd is trusting a man who hides behind numbers and calls it leadership." The interns froze. Malik, the youngest analyst in the room, looked from Ava to Thomas. His throat bobbed. You could almost see the moment he realized something was wrong. Thomas turned toward him sharply. "You've got something to say, kid?" Malik hesitated. Then, quietly, "I saw the ledger entries last week. The missing funds were rerouted through your department's secondary vendor accounts." The room went still. Thomas's jaw clenched. "Watch yourself." Ava looked at Malik, her tone calm but cutting. "Don't apologize for telling the truth." Malik swallowed hard and nodded. Thomas forced a laugh, desperate now. "You're trusting an intern over your senior executives? This is ridiculous." 1. Taxus, gractative. Ava stood, her chair sliding back with a whisper that somehow sounded louder than his outburst. "I'm trusting evidence," she said, "and the more you talk, the more you provide it." The boardroom lights flickered once, twice. No one noticed that Ava's phone, resting beside her folder, had begun recording the entire exchange. By the time Thomas sat back down, pretending to compose himself, the balance in that room had already shifted. He just didn't know it yet. Ava glanced toward the city skyline, her reflection caught in the glass, calm, deliberate, unbothered. In that reflection, she saw what they couldn't. The fall had already begun. The air in the boardroom had turned thick, like it was holding its breath. No one wanted to move first. No one wanted to be seen choosing a side. Thomas shuffled his papers just to make noise. "Let's proceed," he said too casually, pretending nothing had cracked. "This discussion is closed." But it wasn't. Ava hadn't said a word in 5 full seconds, and somehow that silence said everything. Then Malik spoke. His voice was soft but steady, the kind of voice that doesn't know it's about to start an earthquake. "Sir," he said, looking at Thomas. "The ledger Miss Carter mentioned. I checked it too." All eyes turned to him. "I saw entries moved into something called Project G7, but there's no record of that project in our internal database." He swallowed hard. The money didn't vanish. It was redirected. "You signed it." Thomas froze mid-breath. Ava looked at Malik, not as a subordinate, but as a human being doing something brave. "Thank you," she said quietly. Just 2 words, but they landed like thunder. Linda snapped. "Enough! You're out of line, Malik. Sit down." He didn't. His hands were shaking, but his voice didn't waver. "With respect, Mom, we're all supposed to stand for integrity, right? That's what the wall outside says." 80s. 5 Ogden filed. He pointed toward the glass corridor where the company's motto was etched in gold. "Transparency is power." It had never sounded so ironic. Thomas rose from his chair, looming. "You have no idea what you're talking about. That data is confidential. You just violated company policy." "Policy," Malik murmured, "seems to change depending on who breaks it." A few gasps, a few nervous chuckles. Even the HR director at the corner pressed her lips tight, pretending to check her phone. Ava finally spoke, her voice low, even, precise. "Malik, please forward those reports to my assistant's email. Use the secure channel." Linda slammed her notebook shut. "You can't issue directives here. You're not in charge." Ava met her gaze. "If I weren't, would you be this afraid?" Thomas scoffed, trying to regain ground. "This is insubordination. You're contaminating my staff with paranoia." Ava stepped closer to the table, her reflection mirrored beside his on the glass. "You mean truth," she said. "It spreads faster than you think." He leaned in, jaw clenched. You think you can walk in here and rewrite the order of things? Ava's voice barely rose above a whisper. No, I can expose it. That's when the door cracked open. A head peeked in. Clara, one of the executive assistants, pale and hesitant. Mr. Crane, she said. Corporate compliance just sent a verification request about the G7 account. They asked for your signature trail. Spaced, 2,000 denar. Thomas's eyes flicked to Ava. You set this up. Ava shook her head. No, Thomas, you did. I just turned on the lights. For a second, no one breathed. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was judgment. Linda stood abruptly, her voice rising. We're done here. This meeting is adjourned. But no one moved. Malik sat back down slowly, still trembling but freer than he'd been 5 minutes ago. Clara lingered by the door, wide-eyed, watching power unravel in real time. Ava collected her folder, calm as glass. We're not done. We're just beginning. Thomas glared at her, his authority crumbling beneath every calm syllable she spoke. He jabbed a finger toward Malik. You're finished. Clean out your desk. Ava's tone cut through him like cold steel. No, he's staying. You're the one who should start packing. Even the fluorescent lights seemed to hum louder after that. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled across the skyline, faint like applause. And in that moment, the witness who dared to speak had shifted the room forever. Thomas's voice cracked first. You think you can come in here and tear this company apart with rumors? He was shouting now, the mask slipping with every word. His authority didn't sound like leadership anymore. It sounded like fear. Ava didn't answer. She let the echo of his anger fill the room and die on its own. Then she looked down at the mess of papers still scattered from earlier, reached to gather them neatly. The movement was quiet, deliberate, disarming. Thomas's hand slammed down on the table again. I said this meeting is over. He leaned forward, towering over her chair, face flushed. You're fired, Carter. Effective immediately. Pack your things and get out. The room froze. Ava blinked once, slowly. She bent to pick up a file that had fallen to the floor. The room watched a powerful woman forced to kneel, but they didn't see humiliation. They saw composure. As her fingers brushed the floor, her mind slipped back. 19 years old. First, internship. Same tone, same words. A manager who told her she was lucky to even be in the room. Back then, she had swallowed the insult and smiled. Back then, she had no power. Now, she did. The memory faded. The present returned sharper, heavier. She rose slowly, holding the folder like a verdict. You're repeating history, Thomas, she said softly. It never ends well for the people who forget who built the foundation they're standing on. Have an Textstatter, Reverend of Defensions. Linda stepped in, trying to salvage control. Ava, please, let's de-escalate. You're taking this too personally. Ava turned toward her, calm and unflinching. Integrity is always personal. Thomas's laugh came out jagged. You don't even belong at this table. You're a diversity experiment that went too far. I'm ending it before the company becomes a joke. The line dropped like a grenade. No one moved. Even the hum of the projector stuttered. Malik's hand twitched. Clara gasped near the doorway. Ava's gaze hardened. Say that again. Thomas smirked, mistaking her composure for fear. You heard me. She took a single step forward. Good. Now the world will too. She reached for her phone, pressed record, placed it face up on the table. Continue. Thomas's smirk faltered. You can't record me. I just did. The tension snapped like a wire. Linda reached for the phone, muttering, Turn that off. Ava's voice sliced through her movement. Touch it, and this becomes assault. Silence. Then, from the corner, the HR director whispered almost to herself, This is bad. Ava looked around the room, the same executives who had ignored Malik, who had looked down when Thomas shouted, who now shifted uncomfortably in their designer seats. She saw it in their faces, guilt without courage. You all watched it happen, she said quietly. The disrespect, the bias, the theft, and you said nothing. She picked up her phone, stopped the recording. So now I'll speak for all of you. Thomas scoffed. You're done, Carter. You'll never work in this city again. Ava gave a faint smile. I own most of it. He blinked, confused, just long enough for her to lean in close and whisper, "You just fired the wrong woman." For a heartbeat, nothing moved. Then she straightened, dialing a number on her phone. Her tone changed, lower, controlled, absolute. "Carla, it's time. Begin the audit. Access every restricted file tied to Project G7. A pause, then a calm voice through the speaker. "Understood. Authorization confirmed." The wall monitor flickered. Company credentials flashed red. Access revoking, permissions updating. Thomas stared, realization dawning too late. "What did you do?" Ava met his panic with quiet clarity. "I warned you." Two black lever. Lightning flashed outside, thunder rolling behind the skyline. The storm had arrived, and in that charged silence, the hierarchy of that room built on arrogance and fear began to crack, one flicker at a time. The storm outside had begun to crawl across the glass, flashes of white slicing through the skyline like judgment. Inside, the boardroom lights flickered, and for the first time, Thomas's voice didn't sound certain. "What are you doing, Carter?" he demanded. "What is this?" Ava didn't answer. She was already on the phone, her tone calm enough to terrify anyone listening. "Carla," she said, "initiate Protocol 9. Confirm activation with the Compliance Board." "1," a faint voice on the other end replied, firm and composed. "Protocol 9 confirmed." Full systems audit in progress. Every executive's tablet blinked, screens going black, one after another. The company logo faded to static. Then, in red letters, "Access suspended. Security review in progress." "What the hell is this?" Linda whispered. Her screen had gone dark, too. Ava looked up at her, serene. "That's transparency," she said. "In real time." Thomas pushed his chair back. "You don't have the authority to WUD." "Authority?" Ava interrupted gently. "Thomas, you forged that word so often it stopped meaning anything." She walked toward the window, her reflection doubling beside the storm. "When I came into this company, I thought silence kept peace," she said. "Turns out it only feeds rot." Linda rose from her chair, voice trembling. "Ava, listen, if you do this, you'll destroy everything we've built." Ava turned, her expression unreadable. "No, I'll reveal what you built and start over." Then, to the speakerphone, "Carla, project the transfer log." A calm beep. The main monitor at the front of the room flickered to life, scrolling lines of data like rain. Each entry ended with one name, authorized by T. Crane. Thomas's mouth fell open. "That's confidential information!" Ava nodded. "It was. Until you made it everyone's problem." She walked to the head of the table, his seat, not hers. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. He stepped forward, face red. "You don't belong in that chair." Ava looked up at him. "Neither do you." She sat. The room gasped softly, the kind of gasp people make when they know a crown has just changed hands. On the screen, a new email appeared, from Carla. Subject line, "Urgent, ownership confirmation." The message scrolled automatically. "Effective immediately. Controlling interest of the board has transferred under majority shareholder Ava L. Carter, per Clause 17 of the corporate charter." The color drained from Thomas's face. Linda sank back into her chair, whispering, "This can't be real." Ava folded her hands on the table. "I gave you every chance to be honest. You chose humiliation instead. Now you'll learn the price of it." The air conditioner clicked off. The silence that followed was suffocating. Thomas tried to rally. "You think you can scare me with theatrics? The board will hear about this." Martin Axtedale. "They already have," Ava said. "They voted this morning." Linda looked at her sharply. "What vote?" "The one you skipped," Ava replied, "while you were too busy trying to erase my audit." The phone buzzed again. Carla's voice returned, steady as ever. "Miss Carter, compliance has confirmed your directives. Do you wish to proceed with personnel actions?" Ava didn't hesitate. "Yes. Begin at the top." Thomas slammed his hands against the table. "You wouldn't dare." Ava's eyes met his, calm and final. "I don't dare, Thomas. I decide." The lights flickered once more. The building seemed to exhale. Linda's whisper barely carried. "What happens now?" Ava stood, buttoned her jacket. "Now!" She looked toward the door. Now we clean house. The monitors shifted to a live company dashboard, security access logs rewriting, red notifications rolling like fire. Thomas stumbled back from the table, muttering, "You can't do this. You can't be—" Ava's voice was low but absolute. "I already did." Outside, thunder rolled over the city like applause. Inside, the boardroom, once a monument to arrogance, had become her courtroom, and the verdict had just been read. The rain had begun to fall in clean, vertical sheets against the glass. Lightning flickered, slicing through the city like camera flashes at a press conference. But the real flash came from the wall screen, the one that now displayed the document Thomas Crane had prayed would never see daylight. Board decision. Majority transfer confirmed. Authorized signature, Ava L. Carter. Thomas stared at it as if disbelief could undo it. No, that's impossible. He different is the present. Ava stood at the head of the table, his seat, now hers, hands calm, voice level. It's not impossible. It's paperwork. The same thing you buried under your arrogance for years. Linda shook her head, eyes wide, whispering like she was praying. How long have you had that kind of control? Ava didn't blink. Long enough to let everyone reveal who they really are. Thomas lunged for the keyboard. You forged this. Stop, Ava said quietly. He froze. Something in her tone carried the weight of law. The others looked between them, uncertain which one held real authority anymore. Ava walked toward him, slow, deliberate, every step a verdict. You've spent years cutting corners, manipulating reports, mistreating people who didn't look or talk like you because you believed power belonged to your reflection. She paused. But power listens. It learns. It remembers. Thomas tried to laugh, a hollow, desperate sound. You're bluffing. You don't own anything. Ava slid a black folder across the table toward him. The gold lettering on the cover gleamed under the fluorescent light. Carter Holdings, Acquisition, Summary. Read the second page, she said. He hesitated, then flipped it open. His lips moved silently as he read the words, then stopped. His shoulders sagged. Ava continued, calm as rain. When you sold 10% of your shares to cover your bonus shortfall last year, you didn't bother to check who was buying. You were too proud, too sure. And now, she gestured toward the screen, I own 71% of this company. The silence that followed was seismic. Linda sank into her chair, covering her mouth. Oh my God. Ava's tone stayed even, almost gentle. You said I was lucky to be in this room. You said I didn't belong. She let the pause stretch, one heartbeat too, long enough for the room to taste its own shame. You called me a fraud in the company I own. See. The sentence landed like thunder. Thomas stumbled back, shaking his head, color draining from his face. You tricked us. No, Ava cut in, voice like glass. I gave you time to show integrity. You showed contempt instead. Malik, silent since his revelation, finally whispered, You knew this whole time? Ava looked at him, the faintest trace of a smile softening her composure. I wanted to believe they'd rise to the truth without being forced to. Linda's voice cracked. Ava, please, don't do this. We can fix it. Ava's gaze moved to her. Fix it? Linda? You ignored every complaint filed by women and people of color under your division? You didn't fix it, you buried it. She turned to the screen again, pressing a key. The projector changed slides, revealing HR records, complaint logs, email timestamps, all signed, sealed, and hidden under closed for review. The executive stared, trapped between shame and fear. Ava took a breath, slow, steady. This isn't revenge. It's correction. Thomas slammed his hand on the table one last time. You're destroying everything! Ava leaned forward, her voice cold but not cruel. No, Thomas. You destroyed it the moment you mistook silence for obedience. The thunder outside roared again, rolling across the glass tower. She straightened her jacket, her expression carved in calm authority. You wanted a meeting. Now you have one, with your new boss. 44. For the first time that day, Thomas didn't have a single word left. Only the reflection of a woman he could no longer control staring back at him from the glass wall, unshaken, unbroken, undeniable. The sound in the room shifted, not loud, not chaotic, but final. The hum of the air conditioner stopped. The projector light flickered and died. For a brief, breathless moment, the only noise was the rain outside, steady and relentless, washing the skyline clean. Ava stood motionless at the head of the table, the glow from the glass behind her turning her into a silhouette of calm authority. Then, slowly, she spoke. "Carla," she said into the speakerphone, her voice smooth as steel. "Begin termination protocol." The calm reply came instantly. "Confirmed. Please specify targets." Ava didn't look at Thomas. She didn't need to. Thomas Crane. Effective immediately. Misconduct, breach of trust, systemic bias. Revoke access. Thomas's eyes went wide. "You can't." But before he could finish, the monitor beside him flashed red. His login credentials vanished line by line. "User revoked. Access denied." The words glowed like judgment carved in neon. Linda gasped. "Ava, please, we can talk about this." Ava turned toward her, expression calm but tired. "We've talked for years, Linda. You called it policy. I called it patience. That patience ends today." "Carla," Ava continued. "Linda Morales. Failure to address workplace misconduct. Terminated." Linda stumbled backward, voice cracking. "You're destroying livelihoods." "No," Ava said softly. "I'm restoring them." When gadded, in Groditz, behind her, Malik stood frozen, unsure if he was allowed to breathe. The HR director at the corner covered her mouth, whispering a silent prayer she wasn't next. Ava stepped forward, gathering the reports, sliding them into her folder with the precision of a surgeon closing an incision. "This company was rotting from the inside," she said. "You all just learned what accountability feels like." Thomas slammed a fist on the table. "You're making a mistake." Radored, Ava looked at him, her voice low, deliberate, unshakable. "So did you, when you thought silence meant weakness." Security arrived at the door. 2 uniformed guards in dark suits, professional, unsmiling. The younger one hesitated. "Miss Carter, who do we remove first?" Ava didn't pause. "Mr. Crane." Thomas spun, face red with disbelief. "You can't have me escorted like a criminal." But the guards were already beside him. Their movements were polite, efficient, like clockwork. He tried to resist, but the weight of his failure was heavier than their hands. "Get your hands off me," he barked. Ava's tone was measured, almost merciful. "Thomas, you're not being punished. You're being replaced." The guards led him toward the door. He turned once, desperate. "You'll regret this. The board will—" Ava interrupted softly. "The board voted an hour ago." He stopped mid-stride. His mouth opened, then closed again. No sound came out. Linda began to cry quietly, whispering, "I didn't mean for it to go this far." Ava sighed, almost sadly. "You didn't stop it either." The door shut behind Thomas, sealing his protest in silence. The sound echoed through the room like the end of an era. Ava turned to the others still seated. "If you enabled him, resign tonight. If you ignored what you knew was wrong, start drafting apologies. If you believe you still belong here, prove it." Better did code. Her words weren't loud, but they landed heavy, truth wrapped in composure. Malik finally spoke, voice soft. "What happens now?" Ava looked at him, a faint warmth in her eyes. "Now we rebuild, but not with fear, with truth." The rain outside intensified, streaking down the glass like applause from heaven. Carla's voice came through the speaker again. "Miss Carter, internal systems confirm removal complete. Compliance has acknowledged your authority. Would you like to address the staff?" Ava exhaled slowly. "Yes, patch me through." She pressed her palms to the table, the same one where she had been humiliated an hour earlier, and said quietly, "Let's make this company worthy of the people who believed in it." The intercom light blinked green. A chime echoed through the building. And as her voice carried into every office, every hallway, every quiet cubicle where silence once reigned, the empire that tried to erase her finally heard the sound of its new beginning. The storm had moved east, leaving the city rinsed in silver. Water traced down the glass walls like new veins, alive and quiet. The chaos was over. What remained was truth, and the sound of Ava Carter breathing in the aftermath. The boardroom, once the throne room of arrogance, was almost peaceful now. Thomas's chair sat empty. Linda's badge lay face down on the table. The scent of rain mixed with the faint aroma of burnt electronics. The smell of systems resetting. Ava stood at the window, her reflection and the skyline merging into one. Below her, hundreds of employees were still at their desks, murmuring, reading the company-wide notice Carla had just sent. Leadership transition. Confirmed. Effective. Immediately. No scandal. No drama. Just facts. Her phone buzzed. Carla's voice was warm, almost proud. Audit's live, Ava. The staff's watching your statement in the lobby feed. You're trending across the network, but more importantly, they believe you. Ava smiled faintly. Good. Belief is a start. Trust takes longer. She turned back toward the table, where Malik still stood, hesitant, uncertain, but changed. You did the right thing today, she said. He shook his head. I was scared. So was I, she said softly. But fear's just the hallway between silence and courage. He nodded, understanding more than words could explain. She picked up the folder, the same one Thomas had tried to mock, and placed it at the center of the table like a new foundation stone. Then she pressed the intercom button. Her voice filled every speaker in the building. Calm, unrushed, final. This company has spoken too softly for too long. We hid behind performance charts and policy statements while real people suffered in silence. That ends today. Every decision, every promotion, every paycheck will now pass through a new standard, fairness. Every complaint that was ignored will be reopened. Every person overlooked will be seen. Her tone didn't rise, but the weight of it did. We won't rebuild this place to look the same. We'll rebuild it to be honest. And those who can't handle that honesty, you already know the way out. They're commendable. Camesat are there. In the lobby below, people had gathered, assistants, custodians, managers, interns, watching her speak from the massive display screen. No one clapped. They just listened, shoulders straightening, eyes brightening. Ava continued, voice quieter now, almost like she was speaking to herself. When they fired me, they thought they were erasing a problem. But what they really did was remind me who I am. I didn't raise my voice. I raised the standard. She released the button. The room went still. Malik whispered, that line's going to live forever. Ava turned toward him, her smile weary but alive. Then let it remind them what quiet power sounds like. Outside, the clouds broke open, sunlight spilling across the skyline. It fell across her face, turning her calm into something radiant. From her phone, Carla's final update came through. Thomas's assets frozen. Linda's resignation filed. The board has requested you to continue as acting CEO indefinitely. With my better. Ava closed her eyes for a moment, absorbing it, not as triumph, but as clarity. This was never about revenge, she said quietly. It was about balance. She reached for her mother's framed photo, the one she'd picked up from the floor hours earlier, and set it back on the table. We made it, Mom, she whispered. In the lobby feed, applause finally erupted. Not loud, but real. Ava straightened her jacket, collected the folder, and walked out of the boardroom. Each step echoed against the marble, steady and sure. As the doors closed behind her, the company's motto, newly rewritten on the digital wall, pulsed to life. Transparency is power, and power belongs to everyone. The storm had ended. Justice had a new voice, and it didn't need to shout to be heard.